Just a very hearty welcome to all of our guests tuning in from all over the world to another talk around rewilding. Um, the experience around rewilding is where we really deeply look into old conventions, old belief systems, and stuff still running through us from our ancestral lineage that's still in our DNA and creates the reality of our lives. So by rewilding ourselves, it's really like taking away all that belief systems and stuff that keeps us back from really being the true being that we are meant to be, so that we can be sovereign and free and abundant like it is actually meant to be. So I'm Ilse van Balen and I am your host for this virtual retreat. And I have 7 very beautiful speakers and teachers or mentors that are helping us to really unravel this topic of rewilding. It's so interesting for me to see the different take that every person has on how to rewild ourselves, and we can learn so much from each other. So today we have Gabrielle Andrew with us as our next speaker. She founded the Cape Camino after she and her daughter walked the Camino in Spain. She decided that she wants to bring it to South Africa, and they started the whole route and did a whole Cape Camino outlay around Table Mountain and the Cape Peninsula. And at the moment, they are also expanding it into up the coastline and into the interior part of South Africa, and doing a huge job in really getting people connected to the earth and to our beautiful country and the plants and the animals that are still roaming around here. And not that just that, they are also empowering the people of South Africa. There are so many poverty and people without jobs that are in despair, and they are really making an effort to empower people and use them on the Cape Camino so that they can find work and livelihood for themselves. So I want to give the floor now to Gabrielle, that she can actually tell more about herself and how this all came about and what is developed out of that. So how she was a few years ago and how it helped her to develop in the person that she is today. So very welcome, Gabrielle, and we're looking forward to hear what you have to say about rewilding and how your Cape Camino actually helped you on your rewilding process.
Thank you so much, Ilse. So I can easily talk about how it started, which was with my daughter and I when we did Camino de Santiago in 2011. But I'm just so intrigued and delighted by your subject, rewilding, that I'd rather sort of bring it in around that subject and tell you some of the thoughts that I've had. So a Camino is there to give you an opportunity to do personal reflection and spiritual growth. That's what it's all about. It's a pilgrimage. So any subject in that line is suitable for a Camino. That's the one part of it is what it does for the journey that it offers the pilgrim. The other is the stuff that you've mentioned and what it does for the community and for the hosting country and the hosting community, that it offers all these resources. And in particular, I say that our purpose is to bring peace, unity, and I used to say sustainability, but why sustain when you can thrive? So the purpose is peace, unity, and thriving. But now, giving your rewilding some thought, for me, what wilding means is about its freedom and its flow and its life and it's our original form. It's the way that we were. And as you said in your introduction, how we've become so controlled and so all standing in line, another brick in the wall. And I think that kind of started with the Isaac Newtonian idea of the world. And when science and maths and everything started to dominate the Western mind. And with that, I think we actually threw the baby out with the bathwater, which is a strange expression, isn't it? I learned the other day that it actually comes from ancient times when there was only one bath allowed in the house. And it started with the man, of course, bath first, and then wives, and then servants, and then children, and then the baby was left in the end. And the bathwater was so filthy there was a chance of actually losing the baby with the bathwater. So I'm just
Oh.
sticking that in there as an interesting little tidbit. But we kind of lost in the Western world our notion of freedom, of movement, of non-physical, of non-visual, that the science was all about what was empirically obvious. In other words, what you could see, feel, taste, touch, and smell. But without, just because you can't, our senses don't allow, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
I mean, for example, a dog will smell differently to what we smell. So they will smell something, and because we can't smell it doesn't mean it's not there. A dog will tell you otherwise, and a snake and an owl, and we all, even creatures, perceive differently. So to be so arrogant, us humans, and particularly us scientifically orientated humans, to think that just because we can't perceive it with any of our senses that it doesn't exist, I think is that baby going out with the bathwater. So the notion of wild is the things that were originally there, that is part of our free spirit, but it doesn't exist on its own. For me, the language of the divine is always one of paradox. So on the one hand, we have wildness, but on the other hand, it needs to be contained, and particularly in our physical world. I don't want to make the same mistake and throw the baby out with the bathwater and throw away our form and our ego and our brick in the wall. In other words, we need to have a balance between the wildness and our conventions, our way of being, our form, our visuals, the things that you see. So I'd like to talk about how those two things coexist side by side and how important it is to be balanced. Exactly. So just to introduce that, for starters, I just want us to settle down and see if at one time in the constraint of our body with our senses, how we can have a sense of the wildness inside us. So if you could just relax your shoulders, sit, I've just learned this little expression, sit upright and not uptight. Sit up nice and alert, but relax your shoulders, close your eyes, have your hands on your lap. Just take a nice breath. Be aware that there's still a little bit of anxiety when somebody forces you into a meditation. And just relax. Just be quiet in your head and your heart. And then take your awareness to your hands and feel life inside your hands. Just feel the presence of life inside your hands. And just be aware that that's tangible and that it's there, and have that awareness travel up your arms, have the presence of life in your arms. And follow the flow and the presence of life in your body. Down your shoulders, cross your shoulders, down your back. Into your heart area, feel life there. Not just the pulsating of your heart and the up and down of your breath, but the invisible life, the life force that exists inside us. Feel it in your belly. Have it travel down your legs, your knees, your calves, your feet. And just as you sit there, have this real awareness of this form holding life. Free-flowing, enigmatic, expanding life in the body's form. If your mind takes you somewhere else, just bring your awareness back to the feeling of life in your body. And how soothing and lovely that is. Not just take your awareness to sounds in the room or outside the room. Maybe there's birds, maybe there's a clock. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and if we can just come back and open our eyes, and we'll do that again. So I don't know if that worked for you, that you could have a feeling of life inside your form. Was it something that you were able to do?
Yeah, it felt like a tingling of frozen ice, like my body was like feeling light, and that tingling of ice, frozen ice. Yeah, It's lovely. Thank you.
Okay, that's lovely. So that's just an example of how very easily, if we just take our focus into our bodies without much effort or thought or theory, we can easily have an awareness of these two notions of free-flowing life and within form so easily, and that it is calming and that it is relaxing to feel the sense of balance. Because often when we think of wild, we think of madly wild or wild animals or wild places that can evoke fear in us. But I think that if we allow wildness to always sit and to be held in particular spaces, then wildness and the holding can be a body, it can be a heart, it can be a community, it can be a relationship, and it can also be a set of values. So, for example, I spoke about the West, but if we talk about some of the ancient mystics and some of our modern first world communities, they will tell you that in any society or any indaba or any committee or community, it's really important to hold a space. If you're having a meeting or if you're having a discussion, whether it be a family or an organization, that space is held, and there's the holding form of a space for free and fair conversations to go on. And in that space, if the leader or the facilitator of that space can ensure that space is held with respect and people are invited in with respect, and respect can be seen as very kind of strict guiding lines, ways of behaving, do's and don'ts. And if we ensure that when people are there after, we ensure that there is respect in that space, that there is also compassion in that space. And that compassion is held in particular high regard for the elderly and for the children and for anybody that is unable to care for themselves or the sick, that there's compassion and there's respect there. And when a meeting or a discussion is over, that those people are also allowed to leave with that same kind of respect and compassion. And that's a very tight holding feeling, a feeling of feeling safe and feeling held.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lovely notion to think of these two things side by side. And in the facilitation of the Cape Camino, I was a facilitator, and I am a facilitator. That is my job. You can't own the route. I facilitate that the hosts all along the route host the pilgrim. So we find the pilgrim, we hand them to the host, and they hold them. And they hold them and they feed them and they give them accommodation, shelter, they give them food, and they escort them or chaperone them to the next space. More and more our routes are getting signage, but South Africans are frightened. In the rural areas, they really don't have to be. There's nothing to be frightened of, but we ensure that there's chaperones because we respect people's nervousness, and also because people could get lost in the rural communities or they may twist an ankle or something. So it's nice to have a chaperone. Again, a feeling of holding, so that while they're on their journey, on their open road, they really can allow their heart and their mind to expand fully and allow that wildness to be able to expand in a way that cannot be tethered and not be restricted and not be judged. So sometimes we have holding spaces that are overwhelming and that restrict our wildness. And sometimes we have holding spaces that allow our wildness. So in my facilitation, I had to do that for the hosts, excuse me, bring them the concept and listen to their issues and let them show me their paths. I didn't say, we're going from A to B, who's going to host? I said, who's going to host? And then they said, me. And I said, where is our path to get to you? So there's this lovely open path, the process of listening to the host and telling us what's on that path that we can then share with the pilgrim. Sacred spaces, again, more holding spaces for, in sacred spaces, the life force or God or universe to be through us, with us, so that pilgrimage can have that experience, but in this beautifully held space. So the held space is the route, it is the host at every stop, at every evening, and it is the notion of, I respect you, I expect that respect back. In a Camino situation, we don't ever have the old idea that I am of service to you and you are superior for me, and there's this attitude, oi, where's my chocolate on my pillow? It's the host saying, welcome into my space. I will hold you while I'm here and keep you safe and feed you and shelter you. And the pilgrim being grateful for that and respecting. And again, respect is one of these holding kind of attitudes, so that our hearts can expand and our relationships can expand, and that we can bring unity and peace and all these free-flowing things to each other, but held. So that is always my challenge to the hosts, is that of course it's about bringing resources into the community, that the resources do all the way get dropped with the chaperones. So the position of the chaperone is something that I was inspired by Central Africa, where the young poachers, or the young men there, used to poach the gorillas and cut off hands and feet. And the tourist industry turned that around and used those same individuals to take tourists there, because they had the information and they had the skill and they had the strength, and they were that demographic that is in trouble. Our jails are filled with young men between the ages of 18 and 28. Our country and our society has neglected that demographic, and that demographic is what gets us and them into trouble. So that position is particularly targeted for that demographic, and we've managed to fulfill it for about 50% of that. So the young men are role models in their community.
Turnaround, yeah, beautiful. Sorry.
Yeah, and they need exercise. They need something to do with these over testosterone bodies. So they walk these lovely long distances. They don't have to have training. They just have to be from the area. So their local knowledge and experience comes with the respect. There's that holding attitude of respect, which is also with them. And then, so those young men get a fee. There's a fee for taking the luggage to the next spot. There's a fee, obviously, for the accommodation and for the food. The host provides a meal for that evening, and then the pilgrims bring their own lunchbox, because we want to limit one-time use plastic, and they put food in the lunch boxes, and they eat them sometime the next day. And then they hand the pilgrim to the next host. So there's literally this lovely chain of events where we hand a pilgrim to the next, and they hold them, and in between they're on their own journey with their own minds and their own hearts, expanding and finding their own wildness and their own freedom. So that's the kind of nature. So I like to challenge the tourist industry, because I don't consider myself a businesswoman or somebody in the tourist industry. I consider myself a nation builder. So how this whole thing happened for me is that when I turned 50 10 years ago, big 60, I realized I wasn't going to grow up. I thought growing up was going to sort of happen one arbitrary Tuesday where you turned into a grown-up. And when I realized that this wasn't going to happen, I thought I better do something grown up. And when I did the Camino de Santiago, I thought, aha, no, it's no more. This is a grown-up job. So I brought it back to this country, and my actual skill is facilitation. What I do is design and facilitate processes to raise capacity. So my whole job is about creating and holding spaces for people to rewild themselves in a safe space. And then I was able to do that in the peninsula. I just walked and walked and walked and walked and walked and walked and walked, and had my own crazy Camino experiences and meeting people and talking to people. One of the most profound demographics that I came across were the young Rastafarians who have not been supported and held by Western society, and so they'd rather exclude themselves, but extremely knowledgeable and experienced people. They can tell you the names of endemic species on the sides of Table Mountain in English, Afrikaans, and Latin, and they're highly qualified and highly researched and very peace-loving and wonderful people. So I grew enormously. I learned so much about my people and about my country with this lovely combination of wildness and holding.
Wow.
Do you want to say something? Do you want to know something?
No, it's beautiful. I'm really in awe of what you're explaining. I love the idea.
Thank you. So I think that where we are right now in our world, in this situation, and also where we are right now in our world in terms of that we've destroyed our mystical knowledge and our first world people's knowledge and experience, and considered it less than, or all those words that came with the West, like primitive or barbaric, or all those kinds of words that were made up by a particular group of people to diminish another group, that we need to rewild ourselves in looking at those paradigms that we've judged wrongly, and
be
explore
inclusive.
those concepts.
Yeah.
to be inclusivity. So where we are in our spiritual and our relationship with our physical form and our spiritual form is very three-dimensional, which is good and bad and right and wrong and left and right and black and white, and America, the Democrats and the Republicans, and we've got this real polarized way of being in the world, and including judgment. We're constantly judging ourselves. I'm wrong, and I'm bad, and I'm stupid, and I'm fat, and I'm ugly, and I'm lazy, and we even put those words on ourselves all the time. And we're moving, which is what I believe this whole time right now that we're going through is about, into the fifth dimension, or to a very broadly inclusive dimension. And it's a challenge for each of us to work on ourselves, because we've all grown with these ideas of what is right and wrong and good and bad, and to be able to hold spaces for ourselves too, because we start with judging ourselves so badly or so severely. Here I am doing the same thing, that to allow all these qualities within ourselves. I was part of a workshop the other day where we did an exercise where you wrote down 3 qualities that you would say were undeniably you. So say it was generosity, and it didn't have to be your best qualities, any qualities. Say it was generosity, gregariousness, and being frugal. Then we had to do a little example, a little story about how we could claim that about ourselves. And we could say, there we are, that's me because I do that. And then the challenge was to say, have I ever been mean? Have I ever been shy? And have I ever been extravagant? And we can always answer yes to all those things, even though we categorize ourselves, and that categorization limits ourselves. So we all have the broad range of experiences and attitudes, but we tend to shut ones out because we've judged them. So we're generally moving into this time where we're looking at a totality of things. And I know Louise Hay spoke about it a lot. So it's not a new idea, but she is one of our brilliant initiators of all these lovely ideas, isn't she? Yeah. So she spoke about looking at a totality. So instead of going into, when you're holding a space, instead of going into, so when I'm saying holding a space, even for yourself and any engagement in the world in your day, and we meet people like now, we've got the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, and there's this terrible divide going on. If we can really challenge ourselves and say, let's move away from this polarized position and this polarized way of being, and just accept that there's many aspects to me, and there's many aspects to my family, and there's many aspects to my community and to my world, and really just hold a space for all things to be as they are without judgment. And I think that that would be a quality of the wild. I don't think that any wild animal or elephant gets up in the morning, an animal that says, oh, that's a bad mouse, or it's a bad day because it's raining, or it's a very
no judgment. Yeah.
Judgment is a very restricting and non-wild thing, but to accept all things like the wild does, like the sun does, like the wind does, and the rain does, it just is as it is.
Exactly.
If we can allow that for our own attitudes and our own way of being with each other in these spaces, I think would be valuable for us to cope with our current world.
And not expecting everybody to be like I am, really allowing everyone is on their part of the journey, and it can be different from mine. And I think coming from different backgrounds, we are different, and really expecting and appreciating it, because we can learn so much from the other. That instead of judging that, it's like really bringing that in and owning that as part of me as well. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Exactly. So I just want to use this moment, this time now, and also to say the word expecting is also something that gets us into trouble. So to stop that expecting, but if we can just do that exercise again, and after considering that I am all things, I'm not limited to one group of things, if we can just try that exercise again. So just relax it upright and up, not uptight. Drop the shoulders, but the spine nice and straight. So the chin is slightly tucked to elongate the spine, and close your eyes. And just give a moment or two to move from all that thought and discussion, and take your awareness once again to life inside your hands. It's just easier to access life in your hands if they're open and on your lap. And just now notice if maybe your concept of life is slightly expanded just for yourself, that you are life, unjudged, untethered. And your awareness of your life and your body, across your shoulders, down your back, into your torso. Be aware of your heart space and your breath space. Your tummy, down your thighs, your knees, your calves, and into your feet. And have awareness of life inside your body, and an awareness of an unjudging life, of a wild life, that wherever it goes, it's supposed to go. If you can have the awareness of your body and your values holding you, and your life being allowed to expand, adventure, then we're just going to bring our awareness back to the room, so just listen to some sounds. Maybe wiggle your toes and your fingers. You may want to rub your hands on your thighs, so that you're just bringing your body, your awareness back to your actual body. And gently open your eyes. And then we can carry on a discussion, which is in our brain, because our brain is something that can be so limiting and so judging and really move us down a road. So we need to, so one of the things that I'm also learning, that I also think is part of wildness, is repetition. Repetition is one of the lovely holders of life. The sun will rise and the sun will set every day, whether we like it or not. And the rains will come and the snow will come and the sun will come and the winds will come, and it'll happen every day. And I've found that in order to get myself into a good spiritual practice where I'm allowing the wild into my life, repetition is a very helpful thing. Something I learned the other day from Bob Proctor, another old goodie, is that he spoke about, he drew this picture, which was that internally there's a truth, and then we wrap all these onion layers of ideas round and round and round and round and round and round and round, and we have a guru that pierces some of our myths and working its way to the truth, and we get sort of 2 layers down, and then we find another guru and we pierce it, and we get a few layers through, and we find another guru. So we're constantly distracted like this, and we kind of avoid ourselves getting to the truth, which we all know. I don't think the truth is hidden. I think it's right there. But the discipline, again, the paradox of wild and discipline holding each other hand by hand, but working out the discipline of getting to the truth of yourself, which is your wild self. If we can use the repetition of discipline to get to that wild space, and just stick with one thing, it doesn't matter what it is. If you've got a mantra that says, I'm so lucky and grateful that life moves through me and to me, and I'm exactly where I am, stick with that and do it every day. People think that our spiritual practice is for 20 minutes in the morning and that's it. And then we go back to anxiety. But if we can bring more mindfulness into our lives rather than just meditation into our lives, which just means find something and repeat it. Set your watch for your alarm for every hour, and to do something like we've just done, so that it always brings you back to the wildness through the holding of discipline. So again, there's this lovely juxtaposition and this holding together. So, and I think that if we're able to do that, you wanting to say something?
Yes, you made me think when you went through all the weather patterns, that the universe is actually like, the universe is this open space, which is the masculine, actually the holder of space. But nothing will happen if the feminine is not there, which is the weather patterns. Now it's thunder and a tsunami coming and rain falling and wind, and that is actually the expression of the feminine, while the masculine actually holds all of that together. And it's again that polarity, but we need both to really experience the fullness of who we are. Perhaps it's a bit of chat, but you reminded me of that. Yeah.
It's a bit of what?
You reminded me of the masculine and the feminine in this polarities that you were speaking about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So I think
beautiful.
that we fall into the danger of actually sort of swinging from one idea to the next, you know, our whole societies, ourself, this kind of swinging around. But to know that we can, that the masculine and the feminine must hold hands, hand to hand, Father Sky, Mother Earth, and wildness and holding, freedom and
Safety.
safety,
Mhm.
holding. So to have this balance, I think, is a challenge for us modern Westerners, that we try and bring the balance into our lives, at the same time embracing all. And I think, even though I say at the same time, if we do embrace all, it does by itself become a kind of natural balance. If we are embracing the whole, that in and of itself is a balancing action and a balancing idea.
Mhm.
So I think that at the moment we're not all that balanced. So, which is why rewilding is so delightful, and why caminos are so relevant. And a camino is just one way of rewilding ourselves. You know, it's also part of the tourist industry of slow travel, where we just slow down. You know, when I was a child, all the people that went traveling, the adverts used to say, see 23 countries in 9 days. And you'd go tick, 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 tick. I never did it. But I know that's how it was. And you stayed in a bus and you were driven past all these places, and the hotels that you stayed at had to have so many stars, so they looked exactly the same. And now we're in a tourist space where we're being much more inclusive, where diversity is more interesting and more exciting for us, and where
Exactly.
we slow right down and immerse ourselves in an experience rather than witnessing it from the other side of a pane
And
of
bring the whole
glass.
family together. And it's not just a one-off experience. The whole family can actually do that together and get to know each other and support each other. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly the experience that people have when they're on Camino. We've just had two people do the full 23 days. One happened to be a Dane from Denmark, and the other was a South African, a woman from Cape Town. And they were strangers when they arrived. And by the end of it, we sometimes, when people do the long one, we like to go and chat at them at the end. And the first thing he said is the Dane, his name is Yepe. He said, that was an experience of the heart. And I know that that's what it was supposed to be. And you guys can be extremely proud of yourself. Every single day was a brand new experience of the heart. And so he really embraced, and he and her together, but you know, in the beginning they were posing next to each other. Halfway through, they were posing arm in arm, and now they're best buds. So these relationships that have built up between the two
Exactly.
of them and between the hosts and them. We've got our Facebook page, we've got a forum where we like the
And between the
pilgrims and the
countries.
hosts.
Yeah.
Sorry?
And also between the countries, learning from each other's countries as well, and
Exactly.
languages and cultures and all of that.
Exactly.
Oh,
And South
wonderful.
Africans are particularly hospitable. They really
They
are. I mean,
are.
especially rural South Africans. You just don't find
Yeah.
anybody more hospitable than the rural South African.
Yeah.
So this connection really happened. And I can tell you so many wonderful stories that I've heard, connecting, that sharing the pain of losing loved ones. Hosts and pilgrims often sit down and share intimate stories, and there's lovely stories of them crying together and weeping together and healing together. One of our young men, one of our hosts, one of our crew that does all the stuff on our launches, he's a high-tech 25-year-old young man, and he went to Gurenberg, and there was a 55-year-old woman, Brechter, and they happened to have gone to the same school in KZN, obviously completely
Oh,
generations
wow.
apart.
Wow.
Yeah, they're from different cultures and they're from different languages, and there was this immediate bond, you know. And when
Yeah.
you talk to any of the hosts, they just when people leave, they say, "Wow, what wonderful people have come through, and what wonderful friends we've made." And there's this incredible heart connection. So even though you're often doing it alone, you're never alone. That's another lovely
Exactly.
paradox. But
And
when you
then all
connect
this
to your
healing
wild,
can happen between cultures and stuff that we carry in our ancestral lines. You can just like walking it and in a nice way finding healing with that. That's beautiful.
yes, yes, I'd like to add to that, because the essential difference between Cape Camino and Camino de Santiago, although we try and mirror it as much as possible because it's a recipe that works, but that ours is held by our sacred diversity, and whereas the Spanish one is hosted by Catholicism. Um, so yeah, there's some incredibly wonderful going into each other's sacred spaces that happen on the Camino. In the peninsula, there's 14 different sacred ways that are practiced. A little less in the rural communities, but the Khoisan is found in the rural communities. The rock art is just phenomenal.
Wow.
In the countryside. And one of the spiritual leaders that I met, have met over my process of doing this work, a man called Chief Mackie, chief to the Khoisan people, says he doesn't like the word Bushman paintings. He likes the word Bushman. He doesn't mind the word Bushman writings. That it's actually one of the scriptures. It mustn't be seen as art. It must be seen as writings and philosophy and sacred learnings that are interpreted and are always relevant, whichever the times, like many of the sacred writings are. And to develop that sort of respect towards each other's sacred spaces is invaluable. And what you're saying is building on the cultures like the Danes and the South Africans, just within our, we've got such diversity here, and there's strength in our diversity rather than separating it us.
Exactly.
It really does help us create this community of totality
and
where
learn
we
from
basically
each other.
say the same thing.
Yeah.
And on the peninsula, there's so many Islamic sites, Assalamu alaikum, which means come in peace and go with God. And all our sacred spaces, whether you're saying Assalamu alaikum, or whether you're saying Jah bless, or whether you're saying come into Jesus's house, it's the same wild space held in the concept of love, but the wildness that accepts all, and the wildness of love, and how love is in and of itself holding and expanding at the same time. So sacred spaces, whether they're under a tree or on rock or in a cathedral or in a temple or in our own hearts, all have the same energy. And so for me, that's what rewilding really means. And the Camino facilitates that beautifully, is getting in touch with your sacred space, is your most ultimate wild space, and held within the concept of love and community.
That is so beautiful. It's like really, you couldn't have thought it out that way. And actually, when you put all the parts together, it's just a whole body experience, a whole life experience, actually. Wow, that's wonderful.
Well, and for me, it's a whole humanity experience. That's where I really think what's happening to us at the moment. We can either dive down these rabbit holes of fear, which, believe you me, I do regularly if I don't curb myself, if I follow what's going on. Or we can use this as finding those wild sacred spaces to connect with each other and create a body of connected humanity, peace and unity with each other.
Yeah, and so transcend all that fear.
Yeah, and it's challenging.
Yeah.
But it also represents our human condition, which we also need to embrace and understand and work with and know how limiting it is, but recognize and respect that it's part of us. So my first challenge is to the individual, is to find that wildness within the body, within the constraint of the body, and within the constraint of compassion for yourself. My second challenge is to the family, where the leaders in the family can facilitate those spaces of safety and compassion and respect as the families host the Cape Camino. My third challenge is to the entire tourist industry, that we stop treating the customer like some sort of king and ourselves like some kind of servant, but that we together we give each other a travel experience. And then my third challenge is to our country, South Africa, that we can also create this balance of wild and standing together, and our lovely word that you used earlier, sovereignty, and maintain our sovereignty, but at the same time respect our communities and stop fighting with each other and take care of each other. And then my fourth, is it fourth or was it fifth?
Yeah, fourth.
Challenge is to all of humanity, that we can do that not only with each other, but with our brothers and sisters, sky, earth, and all the sentient beings like the plants and the animals. And this is our time now. It's a time of not only of transcending, but also of quickening. Things can move faster. We don't have to take so long to do things. We can have an automatic connection. Our wildness is an automatic a spread of energy, an expansion of energy. We really are expanding very fast. The energy is expanding very fast. So just moving from the individual all the way to all the sentience and all of life and consciousness is something that we can do in an instant. So I feel like we should end on that kind of awareness of that with another meditation with that awareness, unless you'd like to say something or
No, we can
comment
go
or
on. I
ask
like
anything.
the bringing it all together with the meditation and quietness and really anchor it into our bodies. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a huge idea. It's a huge, and like the language of the divine and paradoxes, huge ideas can be found in small places and vice versa. So with that huge idea, which can be an overwhelming thought, like I have a responsibility to bond and connect with humanity, and then, as you say, bring it back and anchor. So let's just do that again. So close your eyes, sit upright, not uptight, relax, have your hands on your thighs facing upwards, palms upwards, chin slightly tucked to extend your spine. Just take a moment, breathe, take a moment to move away from the thoughts, the slight anxiety we feel when we change direction. Breathe, and then take the awareness to life in your hands and feel the hugeness of that life, the expanding consciousness of life. Not just your life, but life in its totality. Feel it in the hand. Feel life in your hands. Know that life is in your hands. Feel it travel up your arms, across your shoulders, down your back. Fill up the heart area, the lungs and the heart. Be aware of the heart doing its job, lungs doing its job, in the belly, belly doing its job, but have life swirling around in its hugeness and its greatness and its expansion. All of life, all of consciousness, flooding, pumping through you, down your legs, through past your knees, your calves, your feet. Feel the life in your whole body. Have your body relaxed, but life pulsing and expanding. Connecting with family, community, country, humanity, and the multiverse. And know how great and how essential you are. No one is greater than you, because you have the full force of life pumping through your body and expanding out the limitations of your body. You are life. I am life. Expanding, connecting, loving. I think just spend a moment or two being in the expanded notion of life. You can leave your body if you like and spread out. Go with your expansion. Let your consciousness travel with your expansion beyond the room, beyond the house, beyond the suburb, beyond the country, beyond the globe, and way out into the unknown. Feel your expansion. And just play there wildly for a minute or two. Just raise the corners of your mouth into a smile, knowing that your play is joyful. Before we return, if there's anything that you would like to ask consciousness, ask now. And the immediate response you got is the truth. Let's leave our consciousness expanded far and wide, bring our awareness back towards our globe, back towards our country, our suburb, our building, the room that we're in. Bring your awareness back to the life inside your body. And just to bring us right back, just open up your sense of sound and listen to the sounds in the room or beyond. Wiggle your fingers and toes. And still stay connected to your expanded consciousness and know that you can connect anytime, any place. And commit to doing that regularly. Just takes a minute or two. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Did you travel, sister?
I just got hot and hot and hot. I can feel it expanded and expanded. It was lovely. Thank you so much. No, that was lovely.
I think traveling, Camino is a way of traveling. So traveling is also such another lovely subject and so related to rewilding, isn't it? That the daily path that we travel every day.
Yeah, and you can do it just, in your room.
Yeah.
Travel the cosmos. Yeah, beautiful. Oh,
Now,
thank
you
you
told
so
me we
much.
had about 20 minutes, and I think we've been talking for an hour, so I thought I should shush a bit now.
No, that was lovely. You can actually go on for another hour. It was very entertaining and lovely to listen to. And I really want to thank you. And then I also just want to say to the listeners that beneath this email with this recording, there will be a button that you can push where you will receive Gabrielle's free gift, which is the maps of the Cape Camino, which you usually buy at quite a price or a price. But for the listeners that want to enroll, you will get that maps for free. And it's lovely to have that traveling maps when you go around. Perhaps you can say a bit more about that. And then there will also be your website and your YouTube channel. And do you have Instagram?
Yes. So I do all the connecting with the hosts, and I do the facilitation, and I'm in partnership with my daughter, who's a perfectionist and who's a organizational fundy, and she's got all that information. But I can tell you that we've got Instagram, and it's Cape Camino. Our Facebook page is at Cape Camino. Our website is www.capecamino.coza, C-O-Z-A. So the maps, we've got these lovely young people that come and work for us that when we launch a new route. So our route right now, when you introduced us, goes around the peninsula for 7 days. And then since moving into the countryside, we've got 23 days in the countryside, plus 7 is 30. Plus we're just about to open a new 4 or 5 days around Langebaan. We're making our way back to the peninsula. Pilgrimages need to have a sacred destination, and our sacred destination is Table Mountain and her beautiful tail that make up the peninsula. So we start in Paarl, and we travel all the way up to Riedlinghuis and across to Elandsbaai and down to Veldrift, which is where we've stopped. And as I said, we're going to open soon into Langebaan and take ourselves to near Darling. We'd hope to connect to Darling as well. And as I say, also connect back to the peninsula where there's also already a route. So whenever we launch, and we've launched in sections, we have these clever young men that do their GPS and their phones, and we've got our maps in IT form, and they've got a drone. Oh, so we've also got a YouTube channel. You can go and have a look at our videos and things there. And so I can't tell you exactly because I don't understand any of it. I use my feet and my mouth still, and a backpack. I don't even travel with a phone, but there are maps. And I think probably Peggy will want to share the maps of the peninsula because that's most accessible to people. It's very much more difficult to walk the country. In fact, it's not possible to walk the country route without booking an accommodation because you really are out in the middle of nowhere. Whereas the peninsula is just rich. We share our hosts with you. But if you are on the peninsula, you can go home every day. You can explore it 2 days at a time, 1 day at a time. So it's the maps of the peninsula that Peggy will send you. And then you can explore all the sacred sites and the route on the peninsula. It's just we live in the most beautiful country in the world, and the most beautiful province in the world, that you're walking on the road and there's a whale and there's dolphins and there's an eagle and there's a baboon. And it's just extraordinary, our beautiful land. So we encourage you to really explore it on foot and to meet the people and to join in the movement. I see the Camino more of a movement than anything else, that if you discover new interesting places and spaces, send them to us and we'll put them on the map. If you discover hosts, we do a lot of homestays and farm stays. So there are some small B&Bs, and it's all about small business. We only support small business, but a lot of people have opened up their homes. So if you'd like to open up your home, we can bring, and you're on the route, we can bring pilgrims through you. Or if you want to extend the route to your space, as long as you can find the pikey, the path, then we can expand it. We'd like to see the concept expand across the province and even across the countryside, and join hands with other people. And then we create this network of walking into and between each other's spaces and connecting with each other. So it's an organic, dynamic concept. So join in and buy our t-shirt.
Yeah.
And give a friend a t-shirt. And we've got these buffs. Buy our buffs and wear them. I mean, in winter, this is my, you know what. I don't have to carry one on me but in summer, because I live in Hopefield where it's hellishly hot, so I take it off in summer. But we do have a couple of branded items. Give them away. Spread the word. Walk the route. Add on to the route, bring your experiences to it. Oh, and then we've got a really nice facility, which is a Facebook page called Cape Camino Forum. And that is for you, for the public. When you're out there on the route and you come across something, take pictures, post them on the page. You have to ask to be let in because it is a closed group. And then we also post new events that are happening, and maybe there's a host in Scarborough that's running some sort of special, or the flowers are blooming in a particular way. Then we put that on the forum, and then people who are part of the forum can decide to walk that leg that day and stay there or go and see what's going on. So it's a building a community, an ongoing communicative community of pilgrims and of hosts and of South Africans and internationals, of people, of humanity, where we are connecting and walking and holding and being wild at the same time.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. So all will be on the page, and you can just go in there and explore and see all the beautiful things and get inspired to book and come and walk the Camino and explore South Africa. And there's nothing better to do that than do it by feet. That's really how you connect and see things and experience things and hold that experience in your body. So thank you so much, Gabrielle. I really enjoyed this, and I'm really inspired to do another leg of the Camino again. That would be lovely.
Please do. We need you back on the route, Ilse. You were one. So for the public, I just want to say that Ilse was one of our launch pilgrims for our original route in 2015 around the peninsula. That's how we met.
Yeah, that was lovely.
So you've been off the route too long. We've got another.
Yeah, you must make one. Yeah. You must develop one to my side.
Part of the plan.
Yeah.
I want to finish with this, and then I'll move somewhere else. Right now I'm in Hopefield, and then when I'm finished with it, I'll move somewhere else and facilitate one near you. I'll come and stay with you for 2 years.
Fantastic. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Have a lovely evening, and love to everybody watching, and we look forward to connecting.
Yes. Thank you all for tuning in. Bye.
Bye, Ilse.